As the seasons come and go, there are always exciting events to anticipate where one can unleash creativity through costume design. Beyond the typical symbols that carry a hint of spookiness, there lies a deep fascination and cultural richness. Take, for instance, the eerie allure of black cats, pointy hats, bats, cauldrons, skeletons. All perfectly fit into the Halloween season and are even fun for maybe a summer Renaissance fair. These icons harbor intriguing backstories that often remain shrouded in mystery, prompting fear in those unfamiliar with their origins. It's the age-old fear of the unknown, rooted in the human tendency to fear what is not easily understood. This concept is further magnified when elements traverse from one cultural context to another, especially when they're very different. During a summer expedition in Mexico, our university troop encountered a striking figure at the La Venta Field Museum. A depiction of the enigmatic deity known as the Flayed One, Xipe Tótec, is a symbol of transformation and rebirth, who is wearing the most extraordinary ceremonial attire. Like many other gods in Mesoamerica, Xipe Tótec embodies themes of transformation and regeneration. He intertwines the sacred and the corporeal in a mesmerizing display of symbolism through the ritual of donning the flayed skin of the sacrificed. Reigning as a symbol of fertility, rebirth, family, and agricultural abundance, Xipe Tótec's connection to costuming runs deep, reflecting a complex tapestry of beliefs and rituals. I'm Renee Whitehouse, and you're listening to Archaeology. For the background history, the Koua Mexica, aka the Aztecs by people outside the Nahua ethnic group, and the Toltecs, are both cultural subgroups of the indigenous Nahuatl language group. Both of them had a god known as Xipe Tótec, which means in Nahuatl, our Lord the Flayed One, or our Skin Lord, putting together Xipewa, which means to peel or remove the skin, To, meaning our, and Tecli, meaning Lord. Also referred to as Yoalawan, the Red Tezcatlipoca, Tatlauqui, and Tatlaka. The first representations of Xipe Tótec first surfaced at Xolalapan and Texcoco, both close to Teotihuacan. He was venerated as a god of spring and new vegetation and celebrated on the spring equinox, or the beginning of the wet season. In the Mexica culture, the day Cuautli and the Trecena, or 13 days, beginning with the date 1 Izcuintli, were protected by Xipe Tótec. He was also a patron of the goldsmiths by the Toltecs in Mexica, but his previous history goes all the way back to the Olmec. Xipe Tótec also had a feminine counterpart, the goddess Xilolen Chicomecoac. Representations of an older version of Xipe Tótec may have first appeared at or at least nearby La Venta, the pre-Columbian site in the modern-day state of Tabasco, Mexico. Though his origin is uncertain, Xipe Tótec may have descended from the myth of God Six from the Olmec culture, or the Xipe civilization in the southern highlands of Guerrero from 650 to 1100 CE. The first artistic representations of the more widely known version of the god, however, date to the post-classical period, the 9th to 12th century CE, and in the Mazapan's culture at Texcoco. As a significant Nahuatl deity, Xipe Tótec was also revered by the Tlaxcaltecans, Zapotecs, Mixtecs, Tarascan, and Huastec peoples. Though the god is believed to have risen to greater prominence in the 15th century as a result of the Mexica conquest of the Gulf Coast during Iztacal's rule, the late post-classic Maya also adopted Xipe Tótec, and representations of the god survive at Oxquintoc, Chichen Itza, and Mayapan. A temple was recently identified at the Indajian Tehuacan complex in the east central state of Pueblo. It was initially constructed by the indigenous Popoloca Indians between the years 1000 and 1260 CE. Although there are several well-known images of Xipe Tótec, including statues, paintings, and masks in museums, this seems to be the first temple known to be devoted to the god. This is because Xipe Tótec is shown on a stone trunk with two skull-shaped stone sculptures discovered by researchers from the Mexican National Institute of Anthropology and History, or NIAH for short. A researcher named Michael D. Coe identifies one of the masked faces inscribed "The Lord of Las Limas" on Las Limas Monument 1 as the Olmec prototype of Xipe Tótec. Two other researchers, Casio and Bernal, use those same lines on the face to identify early representations of Xipe Tótec at Monte Alban, which seem to often represent scarification. As it relates to the later post-classic Toltec phase, representations of Xipe Tótec appeared at Colopan, near Teotihuacan, and at Texcoco, as stated before, in connection with the Mazapan culture. Also in the post-classic period, a Mayan city called Mayapan was home to a Xipe Tótec cult. The priest venerated the fertility god during his festival celebrations by impersonating the deity by wearing the skins of the deceased killed in gladiator fights. The deity was also identified on effigy censers, which are made of coarse, unslipped pottery. The effigy is attached to the front of a thick-walled vase, which stands on a high pedestal base, both slightly flaring out. Getting into more myths and traditions, while most historians agree that the banded eye god, or God 6, is a god in their own right, there is a school of thought that believes that they are a manifestation of the maize deity. This also connects to the Olmec's god 4, who is depicted as a were-jaguar infant or dwarf associated with rain and agriculture. Another researcher, Horleman, sees it as an early form of the later rain deities, such as the Mexican Tlaloc and Mayan Chac. Xipe Tótec was considered the deity of life, death, resurrection, the god of warfare, agriculture, vegetation, the east, diseases, and spring. He was also the patron god of seeds and planting and the patron god of metalworkers, especially goldsmiths and gemstone workers. The east was considered the masculine part of the universe. The dawn was the region of youth and young maize. He represents renewal, the shedding of what is no longer useful, the regeneration of the spiritual nature in people, as well as the changing from dry soil into fertile soil. Xipe Tótec used Chicahuatzli, the staff in the shape of a sunbeam, by rattling to initiate lightning to attract rain, focused on the growth of corn. In art, this was often represented as a snake, the upper part of which there was a bronze sphere that contained seeds or metal pellets. In multiple Mesoamerican mythologies, Xipe Tótec was the son of the primordial androgynous god Amoteotl, and specifically in the Nahua mythology, he was brother of those other three major gods, Tezcatlipoca, Huitzilopochtli, and Quetzalcoatl. Sometimes credited with being a creator god along with his brothers, Xipe Tótec was also closely associated with death, which resulted in him being considered the source of diseases among mankind. As mentioned earlier, he is often called or equated to the red Tezcatlipoca because he is usually portrayed with a reddy red skin suit with yellow horizontal stripes on his face, patron of Cuautli, the eagle, the unfavorable 15th Mexica day name, and he was represented by the day 1 Ocelot. As a symbol of new vegetation, Xipe Tótec wore the skin of a sacrificed human victim. The skin suit is supposed to be a representation of the new skin that covered the earth in the spring. Therefore, his statues and stone masks always show him wearing a freshly flayed skin. He is shown differently in various codexes, like the Codex Barbonicus and the Codex Borgia, as holding different weapons and surrounded by different deities. As I mentioned before, the Mexica specifically seemed to adopt his cult during the reign of Asayacat, who ruled from 1469 to 1481 CE. During the 20-day month of Xipe Tótec, or the Flaying of Men, which is the second ritual month of the Mexica year and is celebrated in March. This transition to the wet season was a grand celebration, which entailed the dressing of several captive slaves as living gods. The festival centerpiece ceremony involved a gladiatorial sacrifice of war prisoners, by the priests removing their hearts. The following day, two bands, one representing Xipe Tótec and the other honoring the valiant soldiers, performed a cane game. Those representing Xipe Tótec dressed in the skins of war prisoners who were killed the previous day, so the fresh blood was still flowing. The opposing band was composed of daring soldiers who took part in the combat with the others. Following the game, the people dressed as humans went door to door requesting presents or alms from people inside in exchange for their love of Xipe Tótec. Slaves or captives sacrificed to Xipe Tótec had their hearts cut out and then were carefully flayed to produce a whole skin, which were dyed yellow and called teloki platamit, or golden clothes, which were then worn by the priests for 20 days during the fertility rituals that followed the sacrifice. This ceremony, known as neto calistli, translates to impersonation of a god. The skins were frequently adorned with feathers and gold jewelry. Every year, goldsmiths participated in Xipe Tótec by hosting a feast called Yopico. A satrap, a provincial governor, wore a newly flayed skin adorned with a feather crown, wig, gold ornaments, rattles in the right hand, a gold shield in the left, red sandals, skirts, and a wide gold necklace to resemble the god. Other victims were fastened to a frame and put to death with arrows. Their blood dripping down was believed to symbolize the fertile spring rains. A hymn sung in honor of Xipe Tótec called him Noeli Lewana, or night drinker, because beneficial rains would fall during the night. It thanked him for bringing the feathered serpent, who is the symbol of plenty, and for averting drought. They then presented Xipe Tótec with the uncooked tart of ground maize, broken corn ears, fruits, and flowers. A dance was performed in honor of the deity, and the festival was closed with a war exercise. After the festival, the flayed skins were kept in containers beneath the temple. Like the black striped face on the impersonators, there were Xipe Tótec vessels and effigy censers of the god Tlaloc that also have black stripes, spots, and black trickle ceramics. Trickleware was a common form of pottery throughout the Puc region to the northwest during the Late Classic. These vessels were interpreted to have been left as annual offerings for the god in the Balancanche deposits in the Terminal Classic period in the Maya area, suggesting that there was a shared belief system between the cultural groups in the broader region. Though there are Tlahtlapi-Huitzli rites for the spring celebration that describe the Xipe Tótec vessels containing human skin, Professor Bradswell in 2014 concluded with, "We cannot say either one way or the other." Xipe Tótec is a frequently featured subject in both masks, statues, and paintings. He is purposely shown horrifically and with a bloated face. Sometimes they're striped, as worn by the impersonators, with sunken eyes and double lips. As shown in his statue representations, he drapes the skin of one of his sacrificed victims over his own, which is then intricately tied with strings at the back and his wrists, with the hands dangling beside his, and on the chest, displaying the incision where the victim's heart was cut out. Several researchers have discussed why Xipe Tótec is a god with aspects of spring, fertility, and as a protector of children, while being quite brutal. The entire practice of sacrifice was, of course, seen much differently by people in the Americas. Royalty often drew blood from their pierced tongues or penises and caught their blood on white strips that would be burned publicly. Symbolic of rebirth and the renewal of the seasons, after the 20 days, Xipe Tótec would emerge from the rotting flayed skin, casting off the old and depicting the growth of new vegetation. Putting on the new skin of a flayed captive symbolized the new vegetation that the earth puts on when it rains. The living god lay beneath the surface of death, ready to sprout like a germinating seed. As for the illness aspect, Xipe Tótec was also said to cause rashes, pimples, inflammations, and eye infections. But when touched, the flayed skins were thought to have curative properties, and mothers took their children to touch such skins to relieve their ailments. Others who wanted to be cured made offerings to him at Yopico. The metaphor underlying the rite is the same as the key metaphor offered by many gods in Mesoamerican spirituality. The ceremony and the art that depicts it forces us to evaluate the exterior covering and the essence of a living being separately. Most literally, the god is the essence. He is the flayed one, who is revealed by the removal of his covering or mask, following the consistent logic of Mesoamerican sacrifice. At the sacrificial moment, opens or removes the outer to reveal the inner, which is metaphorically the essence of life itself. When that now removed covering or mask was donned by another in ritual, the wearer almost literally found himself within the skin of the god. After the skin of the sacrificed body was flayed, the flesh was cooked and eaten in form of communion that reversed the metaphor by putting the god's essence within the ritual participant. What stands out more and more is that while Xipe Tótec is a complexly used deity in ritual, he could be a perfect venerated figure for both the spring and Halloween seasons. To understand the ancient aspects of the holiday that our modern Western culture has all but forgotten. The protection of children and adults, fertility and life cycles, something to remember as nature seems to go comatose all around us, and sacrifice to help others. When the summer season ends, it's good to remember that everything will come back. To be clear, I do not think that his appearance or the story should be appropriated or commodified. I just hope that people can appreciate and learn more aspects behind a culture and a mythology that not many people have learned about, especially for something that can look a little bit, scary. It's like a guard dog, the sweetest to their friends, but a savage to their enemies. Thank you for listening to the metaphor of the flayed one. I would like to apologize for my butchering of other languages. I am very much trying to get the names right, but I make mistakes. Once again, thank you for your patience. If you have any corrections, extra information, or any questions, please don't hesitate to email me at detoursinarchaeology@gmail.com. or head over to my website at detoursinarchaeology.com and say hi. I like it when people say hi. If you want to follow along and look at a lot of pictures while going through the podcast, click the link in the description. It'll take you to the written version of this with lots of pictures and all the citations that I used while doing my research. Under the citations, there are also sources for further readings, which I do recommend because they are pretty cool. All the music comes from Scott Buckley at scottbuckley.com.au. Once again, I'm glad you could join me on this captivating journey through the art and symbolism of ancient cultures. If you enjoyed today's episode, and if you'd like to stay up to date on my latest content, make sure to subscribe to my podcast. I love to hear your thoughts and feedback, so please leave a comment or review or just like it. To show some further support, head over to my Patreon. The link is in the description. Your support means the world to me and helps me continue sharing these incredible stories. For more fascinating art history insights, please visit my website and don't forget to follow me on social media for all the latest updates. You'll get to see my articles and also my pieces of art. So stay curious and stay inspired. And until next time, keep taking those detours. And for the random fact today, in ancient Egypt, all ships visiting Alexandria were obliged to surrender their books to the royal library to be copied. The original would be kept in the library, and the copy would be given back to the owner. If you have any random facts you want to share, please do, and I will share them with everyone else, and you'll get a shout out. Thanks again.